Welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm Scott Gwatney, Chartered Financial Consultant, and I'm joined today with
Christian Clausen, Certified Financial Planner.
Today we're going to talk about something that we think is going to come into the news here in the near term. I know there's been a lot in the news lately, but really the extension of the tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts we saw, they're going to run out at the end of 25 now. We know that they've been talking about, we're starting to see some things come to fruition on a plan to extend those. For how long, we don't know, but we want to talk today about how does that exactly impact clients and really some tips and advice that we see areas that it could really impact, the way we could add some value, hopefully, to navigate some pros and cons of that getting really, extended, and how to really make that more advantageous to your portfolio and your overall retirement.
Yeah, and also, what are the tax cuts? Like, what are at least the proposed tax cut? We'll see over, the next year, like what it actually going to, what's going to come through. Right. We know Trump wants to get, tax cuts on tips.
Yep.
He also want to get tax cuts on or no taxes on Social Security, which we know most of our clients would love.
Yeah.
And, of course, extension of the low taxes that we've had, for the last 6 years.
Right. And one thing that we see here is a good opportunity for something that all clients, I think, should at least visit, is really doing Roth conversions.
Yes.
And this is a time frame that it does kind of vary on when we should do those. Mm-hmm. I guess, Christian, I'm going to let you start off with this. Are there any certain areas where you think, or certain times, I should say, that it's beneficial, or the reasons maybe I should wait, not do it? It's kind of some of the things for people who may not have sat down with us yet of where we would recommend that.
Yeah, so I would say, if you're just 1 year, 2 years away from retirement and you're making money, like both you and your spouse potentially, it may be a good time to wait. Take more of the deduction now, do more pre-tax as part of your 401k, because once you stop working and you're retired, your income is going to go down. Your tax bracket most of the time is going to go down. Well, that would be, one of the reasons to maybe wait a little bit on the Roth conversion.
No, absolutely. And one of the questions I get a lot of is, should, once I hit RMD age, do I do it anymore or do I not do it anymore? And I tell everyone it's almost depending on our certain situation. Yeah. Because a lot of what clients don't realize is even that year that we quit working, the next year we're in that lower tax bracket, one thing that's hinged on our income is like Medicare premiums, things like that. So it's one of those things that we honestly have to be cautious about is, okay, well, now that we're in the 12% tax bracket, 22, 24, what is our wiggle room and what really is our comfort level and our appetite for paying taxes and getting this converted over to a Roth? And is it beneficial for me to do it now?
Right. And it can be very uncomfortable, like just thinking about paying thousands of extra dollars up front on taxes. So part of what we do is we show you how much taxes we'll save in the future by paying a little bit, up now. Yep. And like you said about Medicare, we have to be careful. Roth conversions is not anything that you kind of want to do on your own, because if you're Medicare age, so 65 and above, if you do too much conversion or you do more than certain levels, your Medicare Part D and Part B will actually increase. And we need to pay attention to that before we do it.
Yep. And one thing we want to take a look at is, what income streams do you have? Do we have rental income, pension, Social Security? We see those income streams coming in. Some of those are for life. So even though we retire, we kick on one pension, maybe a spouse, so we kick on two pensions. Now we get into Social Security. Maybe we kick on all four for you and a spouse. Yep. And sometimes you can make as much, if not more, in retirement just by kicking those on, where you have four different sources than you did, before you retired. And that's one of the things when you sit down with us, we want to kind of take a look at and say, okay, well, like you said, seek advice, because if we do this, here's some things that maybe we didn't think about that could really impact us or push us into another tax bracket.
Yeah, and maybe even thinking about delaying. So if you're not taking Social Security, maybe delaying it. Get an 8% increase, which you'll get every year you wait. Plus, there's a cost of living adjustment for 2, 3, maybe even 4%, depending what inflation is for that year. And if we wait on that Social Security, well, that gives us more room to potentially do a Roth conversion, but still stay in the same tax bracket.
Yeah, and really not have, and it won't disrupt things as much once we look at kind of what we're dealing with. So I tell everyone, it's a great idea, but sometimes it's a fit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a fit. To your point, sometimes we need to delay certain things, and we really need to sit down and put a strategy together on what's most beneficial from an income and a tax pay perspective for clients. I think that's...
Yeah, and another thing too is like when we do Roth conversion, this is not a one-time thing. Like we don't want to take all the money we have in an IRA or old 401k and then convert in 1 year, because then you may go up into 37% tax bracket. Instead, what it take over a many year period, and basically from your retire until you hit required minimum distribution age, we should use those years and then a little bit at a time. And again, like Scotty said, it has to make sense. Right. Like everybody's individual, every client that we sit down with is different. Yep. And so based on their situation, we need to figure out if it could work.
No, absolutely. And we get more clarity from that. And this is what we tell clients up until now. The past year or two, we knew we had 2 to 3 years to get this plan put together.
Yeah.
From now, once we get clarity on those tax cuts or tax extensions, then we know, hey, we have another 2 years for this, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. Mm-hmm. So we know what the parameters are. So it really helps us sit down and say, okay, are we retired now? Are we retiring within the next 2 years, or are we 10 years out from retirement?
Yep.
That's going to help, really give more clarity for us to really put together a solid financial plan to do that Roth conversion.
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point. Like 10 years away from retirement, it makes sense to at least change some of your contribution to do after tax or Roth. And just have a little bit. Like we tell clients, try to get as much Roth as you can, under circumstances. One reason maybe not is, if you're in a 37, you're making a lot of money now, but you're going to retire and you're not going to be in that high of a tax bracket. Well, maybe then it doesn't make sense to do a lot of it. But if you're going to be in the same tax bracket, when you retire as you are now, you should probably pay more of the taxes now and do more of a Roth contribution to your 401k.
Yeah. In that situation, and that's where the tax rules come in, is we know that we're going to be in this tax bracket for X amount of years.
Yep.
We don't know if we're going to go back to 2017 tax brackets, 1990s tax rates.
Which are 3 to 4% higher.
Exactly. So that's one thing that, to your point, we always probably want to do a little.
Yep.
Because if we do a little now, we know exactly what we're dealing with in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And tax is such a big, important thing. And we want to spend as much time as we can. And it's not just about Roth conversions, but, like any way we can save taxes or minimize taxes in the future. Yeah. Most of the time, it makes sense to pay a little bit more now to save a lot for not just you, but also the kids that's going to inherit all this money later.
Exactly. Puts more money in your pocket, which is always never a bad thing.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you for joining us this week on Coffee Chat, and we look forward to seeing y'all soon.